Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, a very good morning to you. Peace be upon you all. My name is Ghassan Al-Kahlout. On my behalf and on behalf of the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies and the colleagues at Qatar Charity, I would like to welcome you to this symposium convened jointly on the occasion of the launch of the annual Impact Report 2021. I would like to welcome Her Excellency, the Minister of Social Development and Family, Mr. Mariam Al-Misnad. I would like also to welcome a constellation of ambassadors, representatives from the United Nations, experts, academics, humanitarian workers, and indeed this shall enrich our symposium. The symposium starts with a welcoming remarks by Mr. Yusuf bin Ahmed Al-Kawari, the CEO of Qatar Charity, and then Mariam bin Ali bin Nasser Al-Misnad, Her Excellency the Minister, will be delivering her speech. And then Mr. Mohammed bin Ahmed Al-Mrikhi, the Special Advisor of the Secretary General. In the second part of the symposium, we shall be talking about the link between humanitarian work, development, and peace building. I shall be participating along with Mohammed Al-Ghamidi, the Assistant CEO of the Governance and Institutional Development at the Qatar Charity, and Mr. Biplov Chidri, the technical representative and the head of the UNDP in Qatar, and then we'll be talking for 20 minutes. I would like to say that this symposium will be streamlined and we shall start now with Mr. Yusuf bin Ahmed Al-Kawari, the CEO of Qatar Charity. Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Testing, testing. Testing, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Mr. Al-Kawari, the floor is yours. Your Excellency Mariam Al-Misnad, the Minister of Social Development and Family, ladies and gentlemen, peace be upon you, God's blessings and His mercy. At the outset, I would like to thank Her Excellency Mariam Al-Misnad, the Minister of Social Development and Family, for accepting the invitation to participate with us in launching the annual impact report of Qatar Charity for 2021. Indeed, we shall outline the most important achievements of the positive impact on thousands of people and beneficiaries across the world. I would like also to extend my gratitude to the partners and the strategic partner, the Qatar Development Fund, the UN agencies, the local organizations, and all those who have joined us today. I would like to thank also the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies for the generous reception. Indeed, this center has had great achievements in the humanitarian domain, and we are proud of their achievements. Qatar Charity has been keen on launching similar reports on an annual basis because we do understand the importance of transparency, innovation, achievements, and in 2021 we have started to implement the new strategic framework 2021-2025, which hinges on the work of the strategic partners and the boosting of social development in Qatar, participating in achieving sustainable and comprehensive development to emphasize and the alleviation of the sufferings of those who have been inflicted by disasters, and to arrive at social cohesion. The Qatar charity has focused on 18 objectives, and indeed we have three important numbers that we have achieved in 2021. First and foremost, 10 million beneficiaries. 10 million is the number of women, boys, elderly, and people with disabilities who have represented the beneficiaries, and we have impacted their lives positively. Indeed, we have provided life-saving humanitarian aid. We have provided accommodation to them to preserve their dignity. We have built schools. We have dug wells, and we have provided health care, and also we have provided or created rather jobs, and we launched also peace initiatives so that we can alleviate the suffering. We have been able to access 10 million, and indeed we have treated them equally. So this is the first number, the first figure, 10 million. The second figure is 49. 49 is the number of countries that we have been able to work in across the world to respond to disasters in light of the burgeoning community-related challenges, deprivation, unemployment, poverty, hunger, and so on and so forth. We have been there in Africa and Asia when disasters struck. In 2021, we have also provided humanitarian aid to Syria, Palestine, Somalia, Yemen, Afghanistan, and the Rohingyas. We've been shoulder to shoulder working for their sake, and we shall never let them down. Our field officers in 33 countries worked splendidly. They have assessed the development and humanitarian related needs in order to meet such needs and provide the humanitarian aid effectively and robustly, and in line with our strategy to focus on sustainable solutions and build the resilience of the vulnerables. We have worked on long-term projects in order to have positive impact on the beneficiaries. 33% of our revenues were allocated for such long-term projects. So these were two figures. The first is 10 million, the second is 49, and now we'll come to the third figure, 182,000, the orphans, the vulnerable children who have been directly sponsored in 39 countries. We provided a social safety network to them, and we provided them with health, education, protection from exploitation and violence. Your Excellency, the Minister, ladies and gentlemen, we have put into place a crystal clear plan to recruit the Qatari talents, and we are proud that all the first and second tier management posts are occupied by Qataris. We shall press ahead with this journey to meet the needs of our beneficiaries with the grace of God and with the help of the Almighty and the sponsors who have provided us with funds and allowed us to provide $363 million in 2021. Indeed, we have been at the forefront of the NGOs across the world. In conclusion, these achievements were made in light of huge challenges that we have encountered, especially when it comes to the access of international transactions. However, in Qatar, we are adamant on helping the needy. Our slogan is dignity for all. Thank you very much indeed, and peace be upon you. Thank you. I'll move to Her Excellency Mariam bin Ali bin Nasser Al-Misnad, the Minister of Social Development and Families. We are honored to have you with us. Her Excellency occupies the post of the Minister of Social Development and Families, and she has a 15-year experience in working in different institutions, education institutions, development-related institutions locally and internationally. Mrs. Mariam has a master's degree in strategic planning and business administration, and in 2017 she had graduated from the Qatari Innovation Center, and she worked as well at the Doha Institute of Higher Education, and we indeed proud of having had Mrs. Mariam as a leader in our center, in our institute rather, and then she became the CEO of the Amman Center, as well as the regional leader for communication management at the Social Rehabilitation Center, and she worked as the CEO at one of the branches of the UNICEF, and in 2006 she worked at the Higher Council. Please, the floor is yours. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Peace be upon you, God's blessings and His mercy. Please allow me to welcome you all at the annual impact report Qatar Charity 21, and I'd like to extend my gratitude to Qatar Charity for this generous invitation. I would like to extend my gratitude to the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies for hosting this symposium. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to talk to you from my heart. As we are talking about humanitarian work, we shall look ahead with optimism in order for humans to be the center of our endeavor. We join the Qatar Charity today in this symposium to launch the annual Impact Report 2021, and I commend the achievements of Qatar Charity locally and internationally as far as humanitarian support is concerned. I would like also to commend the Qatar Charity for her vision, the support of the Qataris arriving at prosperity, and mobilizing the resources to do so, especially when it comes to paving the way to arrive at social, economic, and environmental related prosperity. Relentless efforts were deployed to help thousands of beneficiaries across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, our humanitarian action is intrinsically linked to the dignity of humans. We work to meet the needs of our beneficiaries. I'd like to remind myself and remind you all and all those who work in the humanitarian domain of the importance of listening to the needy, listening to the aspirations of our beneficiaries wherever they are. God has chosen soldiers amongst his slaves for the service of others. It is indeed an honor to serve other people and to meet their needs. We hope that the Almighty would honor us to carry out such task. It is our duty to be faithful in carrying out such task to meet the needs of the needy. As the crises are ravaging our world, the climate change and the other crises, Qatar Charity is racing with the time in order to carry out its tasks. Indeed, the impact has been positive in 2021, and the needs are burgeoning. 363 million USD have been spent. 10 million beneficiaries tapped into such assistance, including the vulnerables from within the Qatari society. In conclusion, I would like to thank those who have continuously worked to serve the Qatari society in accordance with the Vision 2030. I'd like to commend the humanitarian organizations in Qatar for their benevolent work and the support thereby to those who have suffered greatly. Thank you very much, and peace be upon you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We'll move to His Excellency Dr. Ahmed bin Mohammed Al-Mriqi, the Special Advisor of the Secretary General of the United Nations. Mr. Ahmed is the Special Advisor for the PPP, or the Public-Private Partnerships and Islamic Financing. He used to work as the Special Envoy from December 2016 to December 2019, and he has a great experience in the diplomatic and humanitarian domains, and he had occupied a number of posts at the Foreign Ministry and other ministries before he moved to the United Nations. Please, the floor is yours, sir. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, Your Excellency Mariam bint Ali bin Nasser Al-Misnad, the Minister of Social Development and Family, Mr. Yusuf bin Ahmed Al-Kuwari, the CEO of Qatar Charity, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to participate with you to launch the annual impact report of Qatar Charity 2021. I would like to extend my gratitude and the gratitude of the United Nations to the state of Qatar and Qatar Charity for their efforts that have been deployed for decades to meet the needs of the vulnerables. And indeed, Her Excellency, the Minister, knows such challenges because she had worked in this domain, especially when it comes to combating illiteracy and sponsoring orphans. And in the last week, the Human Development Report has been launched, entitled Uncertainty in Life, formulating our future amongst uncertainty. The title indeed is worrisome. Ladies and gentlemen, the last 2 years have witnessed a retreat in the humanitarian development for the first time, and we must feel concerned indeed as the implications of the COVID-19 are ominous, and they kind of have destabilized the development all across the world. You can see the rising temperature, the hurricanes, floods, and droughts, and so on and so forth. The climate change implications are indeed very negative, and this leads to the fact that the numbers of the needy are burgeoning. And this has led to also soaring inflation and further uncertainties. However, amidst the state of uncertainty, there is a chance for transformation, and the SG's report talks about the following solutions. We must invest in the public domain so that the member states of the United Nations can play a role to arrive at a more sustainable society. Second, we must elaborate on the community or social related safety nets, especially when it comes to the vulnerable and the poor people, to provide tools to meet their needs, to create jobs, and to improve the productivity. Third, we must be innovative. We must think from outside the box in order to meet such challenges. We cannot go back to the previous tools. We must explore further new partnerships and to tap into the private sector along with the public sector and the NGOs in order to arrive at our goals. As we look to the past, the annual impact report of Qatar Charity indeed has incorporated a number of solutions and a number of plans that have conformed to the international standards, building schools, providing shelter to the low-income families, and supporting the orphans, and investing in the education and the medical sector has been splendid. There are a number of initiatives to this end, and in addition to that, Qatar Charity has swiftly mobilized resources to play a part in Sudan, Palestine, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and other countries. We as Muslims, we have unique tools that we can tap into in order to support such a transformation, the like of Islamic social financing, the endowment, the zakat or the alms giving, in order to solidify the safety nets. At the outset, I said that we must be vigilant and concerned. However, we must be optimistic as well, because these turbulent times have led to kind of a hurricane of uncertainties. However, we do have dynamic solutions that are new and innovative. Investment providing protection and other tools ought to be utilized in order to arrive at our goals. And thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Doctor, for this speech. As you know, Qatar Charity is an NGO, an international NGO that provides humanitarian aid since 1992, and it has been established in accordance with the values and the traditional heritage of the Qatari society. Qatar Charity, during the last 5 years, years has spent $1.2 billion, and the beneficiaries were to the tune of 29 millions. We shall display a video to cover the details of the annual impact report of Qatar Charity for 2021.
الإنسانية والكوارث بهدف إنقاذ الأرواح ومساعدة المجتمعات المتضررة على التعافي والصمود، كما تقدم حلول مستدامة للقضاء على الفقر والجوع والبطالة واستغلال الفئات الضعيفة والهشة كالأطفال والنساء وذوي الإعاقة لتحقيق رؤيتها المتمثلة في توفير حياة كريمة للجميع. في عام 2021 استمرت قطر الخيرية في رسالتها عبر تدخلات ساهمت في تغيير وإنقاذ حياة 10 ملايين شخص في 49 دولة حول العالم بفضل التبرعات السخية من المجتمع القطري، والتي تجاوزت 363 مليون دولار. تمكنا من تنفيذ تدخلات إنسانية وتنموية مكنت 480 ألف شخص من الحصول على الحق في التعليم، 2,700,000 شخص من الحصول على الماء الصالح للشرب والمرافق الصحية التي تضمن العيش بكرامة، 1,000,000 شخص من الحصول على رعاية اجتماعية ومساعدة تضمن لهم حق الوصول إلى الخدمات الأساسية، 1,600,000 شخص من الحصول على خدمات صحية وغذائية، 290,000 شخص من الحصول على مأوى لائق وكريم، 3,800,000 شخص عبر مشاريع الأمن الغذائي، 31,000 شخص من الحصول على مشاريع مدرة للدخل، 74,000 شخص من الحصول على سبل العيش أثناء الأزمات. في 2021 استجبنا لأزمات إنسانية في أكثر من 30 دولة لمساعدة ضحايا الفيضانات والزلازل والشتاء القارس وضحايا النزوح والنزاعات المسلحة. في الأزمة السورية واصلنا مسيرتنا التي بدأت في 2012 للمساهمة في تقديم الحماية للنازحين من خلال مشاريع مدرة للدخل وبناء مرافق تعليمية وصحية، كما واصلنا عمليات تقديم الخدمات المختلفة في التعليم والصحة والغذاء والإيواء للاجئين السوريين في تركيا والأردن ولبنان وغيرها من الدول. واستجبنا للأزمة الإنسانية في أفغانستان عبر تدخلات داخل قطر وفي أفغانستان، وذلك من خلال توفير الخدمات الأساسية لعشرات آلاف العابرين الأفغان في دولة قطر، وتوفير الرعاية والحماية ل250 طفل غير مرافق، كما قدمنا 245 طن من المساعدات المنقذة للحياة لأكثر من 60,000 نازح داخل أفغانستان في وقت كان يصعب فيه الوصول للمناطق المحتاجة. كما لم نتوقف عن تقديم الدعم للاجئي الروهينجا في دول اللجوء. في ماليزيا واصلنا تنفيذ مشروع بقيمة 15 مليون دولار لدعم وصول أكثر من 80,000 لاجئ للخدمات الصحية المنقذة للحياة عبر تدخلات صحية متنوعة. وفي بنغلاديش قمنا بترميم ما يزيد عن 550 مساكن للاجئين الروهينجا، قدمنا مساعدات منقذة للحياة لما يزيد عن 3,000 لاجئ. واستمرارا لمجهودنا في اليمن منذ أكثر من 23 عاما، حيث يعيش ملايين الأشخاص في أوضاع إنسانية غاية في الصعوبة وبدون الخدمات الأساسية لتوفير المياه الصالحة للشرب والغذاء والإيواء والرعاية الاجتماعية وغيرها من المجالات، حيث وصل إجمالي إنفاقنا في المشاريع الإنسانية أكثر من 58 مليون دولار. تماشيا مع الهدف الثالث للتنمية المستدامة، نفذنا مشاريع مستدامة في مجال الصحة في كوسوفو وفلسطين والصومال والسودان وقرغيزستان وغيرها من الدول. وتحقيقا للهدف السادس نفذنا مشاريع تنمية مستدامة لمساعدة المجتمعات في الوصول إلى المياه والمرافق الصحية، على سبيل المثال في باكستان والسودان والصومال وبنغلاديش وبوركينا فاسو. مشاريعنا في السكن الاجتماعي ساهمت في تحقيق الهدف 11 للتنمية المستدامة، وأخيراً ساهمنا في تحقيق الهدف الثاني للتنمية المستدامة للقضاء على الجوع، أهمها في فلسطين والصومال وسوريا. يبلغ إجمالي تدخلاتنا التنموية ما يزيد عن 305 مليون دولار، وبحمد الله وتوفيقه، ومن ثم بفضل دعم وسخاء المجتمع القطري وصلنا إلى 10 مليون مستفيد من الأطفال والنساء وذوي الإعاقة والمستضعفين والفئات الهشة حول العالم في 49 دولة، وأيضا بفضل الدعم الكبير من مختلف شركاء قطر الخيرية، وعلى رأسهم هيئة تنظيم الأعمال الخيرية وشريكنا الاستراتيجي صندوق قطر للتنمية والوكالات التابعة للأمم المتحدة والشركاء الدوليين والمحليين والجهات الحكومية والمحلية. ومعكم نتطلع في عام 2022 إلى عالم يسوده السلام والتنمية والتعافي والصمود والعدل والمساواة الاجتماعية والحياة الكريمة لمختلف شعوب العالم. قطر الخيرية، حياة كريمة للجميع.
Before moving to the second part of this symposium, I would like to mention that Qatar Charity, and in order to protect the environment, they distributed cards, and on these cards you have a QR code, and you can read the electronic version using this QR code. And before continuing, Mu'mina actually drew my attention that translation is available on channel. We will start the second part of this symposium, and I would like to invite Mr. Muhammad Al-Ghamidi, Dr. Shukri. And we would have loved Mr. Khalifa to participate with us. So it is important for test. Test 1 2. even with the increasing crises of refugees and displacement, and also this link between relief and development was important to link between these aspects. So this approach was put together in order to improve the response system, and it was adopted and adjusted by the institutions in the Arab world. They had worked on their structure that was outside of the international assistance or aid system. The Nexus actually approach, its objective was to strengthen collaboration and coordination and breaking the obstacles between the different works all over the world, and this separation between peace building and the humanitarian assistance. Building peace and security assistance in vulnerable countries had been offered several times in the absence of a general and comprehensive context aiming at finding solutions to the motivators to the causes of conflicts, in addition to the work aiming at reducing the humanitarian needs. So this concept tackled the OECD, that countries' discrepancies. So the traditional donors, for instance, the Western countries like in the EU and Canada and the United States, so the donors actually were not involved. So we're talking about the non-traditional donors. Non-traditional donors are the donors in the Arab Gulf. Nexus actually aimed at attempting to solve the problems and discrepancies at the level of the traditional donor system, separating between the development aspect, aid aspect, and peace building and other aspects. So donors who suffer from internal divisions are actually advised to revisit the organizing structures in order to facilitate collaboration, coordination, cooperation between the different parties of this nexus. And this is the development initiative report. So it was basically addressed to Western donors. However, the non-traditional donors actually have a different approach. They focus on the support of government and spending on infrastructure projects. And there is a narrower gap between development after conflict compared to the gap when it comes to the Western donors. So there is a less clear of a line between the different organizations working in the peace building. When it comes to Gulf donors, they were not the target audience for the necessary reforms. They adopted some of these recommendations, and in some instances we started seeing that the work of the institutions, even before the humanitarian summit announcing this approach, we saw that they were actually following humanitarian work and peace building, etc. Qatar in particular and Gulf countries in general adopted this approach, and at the level of the center we consider this as a priority to document it and analyze it. During the last 5 years and during several statements and international reports, we saw the adoption of this approach. For instance, the Kuwait report. Kuwait is a long-standing donor, and the Kuwait Fund for Economic Development was established in 1961. It Kuwait distributed the humanitarian assistance through different channels. The United Nations in particular, $300 million were dedicated to UN agencies in response to the Syrian crisis. Kuwait was actually a key partner in the humanitarian response in Syria. However, what drove the attention was that the UNDP report regarding the link between humanitarian work and development and peace actually highlights the role of Kuwait in terms of linking between the three aspects, and this report actually highlights the fact that Kuwait strengthens its position and status as contributor to the reinforcing of the societies in different countries all over the world. The UAE sample, one of the ministers actually had delivered a speech at the level of the UN talking about peace building and peace sustaining, and the strategy of the UAE clarifies and highlights the fact that peace building is a priority for the UAE based on the regional security support and also offering humanitarian assistance and reconstruction in Yemen and Syria, etc. However, this report does not link the concept or highlight the link between the three aspects. The definition of UAE actually links between them all. I'm not gonna be lengthy because we're running short on time. In the state of Qatar, Qatar contributed increasingly in the context of conflicts, and the relationship was obvious between the three aspects. Qatar is an active party linking between humanitarian work, development, and peace, and it is an important characteristic for the state of Qatar, and it had not been previously organized as part of the classical way of providing assistance. So this allowed the diversity and the involvement in non-traditional programs and creative programs for the state of Qatar. For instance, Qatar Charity contributed in Darfur and in other regions very actively in order to bridge the development and humanitarian gap. Our colleagues at Qatar Charity focused that their projects in Darfur did not only highlight the traditional asset but also contributed to the efforts of the country and government and peace building in the region, and hence they are a key partner. I have other specimens and samples. So they all highlight the link between the three aspects. So adopting this relationship between humanitarian work, development, and peace is the context and the framework for Gulf countries. This is actually being studied at the level of the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies, and we are working on several case studies and the 4 donors of the Gulf. And some people say that discussing this topic can be considered adoption. Basically, this is the trend, talking about Nexus and adopting the latest terminology that is being used every now and then. However, we see that it is actually not the truth, because I would like to reiterate at the end of my intervention that the approach of this approach is not linked with a specific project. It is actually an approach relating to the link between humanitarian work, development, and peace. This is a systematic approach. It is not relating to a specific project to go in line with the international trend. This link needs to be adopted as a reform initiative. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for being lengthy. In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to begin, and I would like to thank the center for hosting us here. And I think that Qatar Charity, just like other organizations built and created in the 80s, we are talking about charities in the Islamic and Arab region, particularly in the Gulf. The objective was to offer assistance and standing with vulnerable communities, and Qatar Charity actually came as a response to the situation in Afghanistan after the end of the Soviet war, or the Soviet conflict there in Afghanistan specifically. And I would like to reiterate what you said, Dr. Hassan, regarding the Nexus, this new concept that was born lately, and the debate in terms of the definition, the concept, the purpose, and the implementation. At the same time, in the Arab world, we see that there is no specific term that's translated for the word nexus. And after 2016, they talked about a new way or new approach, a new way for humanitarian work, etc. But it was not reflected in the Arab world. We know that the center here gives particular attention to this situation, and you have efforts that are commended, but there still has to be an Arabic term or equivalent for this word like nexus and how it impacts the work. We think that the increasing needs all over the world, and what Qatar Charity is offering is the natural response based on humanitarian work and also based on our civilization and culture in the region. However, the increasing levels of tension, conflicts, and just like Dr. Ahmed Al said, and the security for the future, this raises concerns, and we're talking about more than 1.8 billion people who are in need, and the percentage in the Arab world and Islamic world institutions offering and responding, offering assistance when it comes to these contexts. So whether we're talking about local domestic organizations or transnational organizations like Qatar Charity, and how many Arab and Islamic organizations are going to dedicate funds to respond to this, like Qatar Development Fund and its role all over the world. So in facing all these challenges, because we think that these efforts at the local level, individual efforts, in light of the increasing needs all over the world, are not going to be efficient, and the situation is not a very source of optimism, because we are talking about crises that have been ongoing for a long period of time, climate change that is impacting all over the world. Half of the Somali population have been displaced because of climate change, and the coming years are going to be harsher and harder and more difficult with the increasing temperatures in the world. What we saw, and we still see in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sudan, the floods, unprecedented floods in Pakistan. People have had their properties destroyed. 30 million, be it in high or elevated, high altitude locations. Floods actually destroyed and damaged their properties, and people in the valleys still cannot return because it is still covered in water. So the situation needs for us to highlight the dedicated funds, not only for emergency relief but also development. Qatar Charity, just like we saw in this film, and His Excellency mentioned. So we saw the dedicated funds for development, and here we need to talk. Are we talking about development in stable regions or conflict regions? For instance, the Syrian crisis, 12 years later, actually, we cannot talk about emergency relief.
and the lack of education for more than 5 million students or kids. And Syria used to export grains and was self-sufficient, but after 2011, it's a shame to see that the Syrian people do not have the bread on a daily basis. I'm not going to talk about theories, but at Qatar Charity we have support for the wheat chain in the northern parts of Syria. We succeeded in collaboration and coordination with the OCHA, and what we will see in a video now led to a very important result. Of course, unfortunately, we cannot hear the video here in the booth. We will resume when the gentleman continues.
التخزين والإنتاج. دعم قطاع الزراعة وإعادة تفعيل سلسلة القيمة للقمح. قامت قطر الخيرية بإضافة محاوتها البنى في سبيل دعم قطاع الزراعة وإعادة تفعيل سلسلة القيمة للقمح. قامت قطر الخيرية بدعم زراعة القمح من خلال توفير المدخلات الزراعية للمزارعين بجودة عالية لزراعة وإنتاج القمح. دعم استعادة أصناف القمح المحلي ورفع نواقوتها بالتعاون والتنسيق مع المؤسسة العامة لإدخال البذار. إعادة تأهيل البنى التحتية لخزن الحبوب، بالإضافة إلى البنى التحتية لإنتاج الطحين وتوفير الطحين بسعر جيد للمخابز من أجل إنتاج الخبز وتحقيق الاكتفاء الذاتي للمجتمع المحلي.
Can you hear me now?
Sir?
Can you-
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? Yes? Okay. So this is part of the initiative that was launched by the Development Fund in Syria, and
Can you hear me now, sir? Okay. That's why we are not talking about this experience as a sole experience. No, we have the Darfur experience, which was unprecedented, an initiative by the state of Qatar to support peace and security in Darfur. Indeed, a package of projects were launched with the support of the Qatar Development Fund. As you know, the war was fierce, But nowadays we have development projects, we have peace, we have water, and indeed these projects were fruitful, especially when it comes to the issue itself. So here we are not talking just about projects for luxury purposes. No, it is to do with meeting the needs on the ground and the link between the development and peace. As a matter of fact, we are lacking the research that is pertinent to the Qataris' experience on part of the government. If you could allow me to speak on behalf of the government for just a few seconds. Yes, the government played a major role, as well as the NGOs, the private sector, that played a major role in funding such projects. What we need from the think tanks is to have research papers to shed light on such issues, so that the Arabic Library can have such enriching materials. Thank you, and sorry for not presenting Mr. Mohammed because he is a very well-known person. So, so shall I repeat his bio? No need. He's saying. Okay, we'll move to Dr. Bilpop Shukri, the head of the UNDP in Qatar. And Dr. Bilpop has an experience that stretches over more than 2 decades, 25 years, in the development-related issues in Africa and Asia, and conflict and other conflict-related hotspots, and he works as a senior advisor to different governments. He worked in 14 different countries in Asia and Africa, and he's very well known in the United Nations as a leader, as initiative launching personality, and he works in the UNDP in Qatar since 2021. Please, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you for your kind words. I hope you can hear me well. His Excellency Mrs. Mariam bin Ali bin Nasser Al-Misnad, Minister of Social Development and Family in absentia. His Excellency Dr. Ahmed bin Mohammed Al-Muraiki, Special Advisor to the United Nations Secretary General in absentia. Mr. Yusuf bin Ahmed Al-Khawari, Chief Executive Officer, Qatar Charity. His Excellency Khalifa bin Jassim Al-Khawari, Director General, Qatar Fund for Development. Fellow co-panelists, Mr. Mohammed, Dr. Hassan, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all express my sincere gratitude. It's such a privilege and an honor to be in this very distinguished audience and to share a few reflections and some few thoughts in terms of Nexus in action, or how we are in UNDP taking forward this very important concept and trying to operationalize it on the ground. Before I go there, I just wanted to extend my heartiest congratulations to Qatar Charity for launching the annual impact report. And it's very, I was struck by the fact that you used the word impact in the middle of the report. So, really putting the spotlight on impact. And I think that's linked also to this idea of Nexus, that it probably leads to much more impact than if you are acting in silos. So a really impressive set of achievements, 10 million beneficiaries, 49 countries, 182,000 orphans and vulnerable children, really impressive. So I really congratulate the entire team of Qatar Charity and all the supporters for doing this very impressive, inspiring work across the world. So plenty of things to learn from. I also wanted to pick up the number of things I wanted to pick up on, but please allow me a minute to share that, Her Excellency talked about dignity for all. Her Excellency, the Minister of Social Development and Family. And she also mentioned the important need for listening to the needy, listening to the aspirations of the beneficiaries. So this is also a very important concept when you talk about Nexus and operationalizing the Nexus. I also heard, His Excellency Dr. Ahmed talk about the Human Development Report, which was launched very recently on 8th of September. And this report, this is not the time to talk about it, but I think he's already explained it. For the first time, it's unprecedented. We are seeing consecutively in 2 years reversal of human development ever since UNDP started measuring human development in 1990. It's a stunning fact. It's an unprecedented fact. You have essentially wiped off in the last 5 years the gains of the gains which were made in the last 5 years on SDGs. So it's a very important and sobering thought to keep in mind. Now on the topic itself, I also wanted to share some numbers, if you'll allow me. I was looking at the global humanitarian overview, and it points to some startling numbers as well. You have 274 million people across the world who are in humanitarian needs, one way or the other. The Global Humanitarian Response Plan is targeting 183 million people. It's mind-boggling. And 41 billion is the kind of target envelope, ballpark number which has been talked about in order to meet the very minimum humanitarian needs. So it's really, if you look at the other challenges we are facing, which you also outlined in the Human Development Report, you will notice that this is something which is going to test the humanitarian aid system and it's already testing. So basically, given the massive scale, and it's further exploding, I mean, as the report points out, these challenges are here for us to stay. I mean, we cannot close our eyes and say next year will be okay. These crises are worsening. It's kind of the new normal, if you like. And so we have to definitely try and break new ground and make efforts, such as what Qatar Charity is doing, such as what Qatar Fund for Development has led in terms of this nexus, the triple nexus, and how we can integrate humanitarian peace building and development principles into one integrated whole. And there is an indivisibility in this. I can tell you my personal reflection in a minute. I was serving in South Sudan and I was serving in Myanmar. And when you go to the field in Rakhine or in Jonglei and other parts of South Sudan, you notice that people who are displaced, they want to be helped in a dignified way. And that's why I think it's very important that Qatar acknowledges, recognizes, and integrates that in its response. They want to have dignity, and there's no way you can have dignity by just sort of giving out, dishing out humanitarian assistance in just sort of focusing only on life saving. I think those things are well recognized, acknowledged, and people are trying to move beyond it. People want to be helped, and the people also want to help themselves. So these two aspects are really critical for us to keep in mind. Just sort of very quickly, and this is my final word, and pass it back to you. Recently, and we really thank Qatar Fund for Development and the State of Qatar for supporting UNDP in the Special Trust Fund for Afghanistan in helping us to operationalize what you can characterize as triple nexus in action on the ground. Afghanistan, I'm sure all of you are aware, this particular audience doesn't require any details from me. It's facing a very, very severe crisis. And we benefited from QFFD's generous contributions of $5 million to the Special Trust Fund to support the area-based approach for development emergency initiatives. It's called Abadai Program, which really is trying to break this vicious cycle of spiraling humanitarian needs. You have now universal poverty in Afghanistan, which is extremely tragic for a very proud people and for the world. It has regional security aspects, which you all know about. It has other sort of very, very important downsides if you are not able to pay attention and support. And so this, the support, amongst other important support from other donor partners, is a very critical element of trying for us to operationalize Nexus in action. In the Special Trust Fund for Afghanistan, we have adopted a very unique approach. We have brought together 17 agencies, funds, and programs. It's not usual that all the 17 agencies are coming together on one common platform, and really trying to have unified planning, unified programming, and also helped by this multi-year unified financing framework. This is really central. If all the agencies can do jointly the analytical work, which informs the programming, and you have a system of reviewing it, learning from it, and then refining it, then I think it sets into motion a very important virtuous cycle in which humanitarian peace building and development actions can really come together in a very smart way. The second point which I wanted to mention is it's very unique also, this Abadai program, that it has given really all the donor partners a seat at the table. So Qatar Fund for Development, Qatar, other donors, they are also sitting with us reviewing the progress made, the implementation of the Abadai program. And they have a voice on the table, informing, reflecting, guiding these interventions. And these feedback that we receive from important partners such as Qatar are really, really important. And the third aspect is, of course, learning from the monitoring and evaluation, because that's very important. If you want to replicate, scale up, and take this to other countries, so not simply the Afghanistan experience, but really looking, harvesting across the globe in complex humanitarian emergencies, and benefiting and really strengthening this virtuous cycle. So I think one final point, if you'll allow me from my side, this question of this integrated approach, I was also particularly struck, and I really wanted to congratulate the state of Qatar for the agreement that it hosted on Chad, on sustaining peace. It's a very important step to acknowledge and recognize that these three things have to come together if you're really hoping to have a virtuous cycle, which I think Qatar is leading by example. We applaud, we congratulate all of you for doing that and leading the way. But there's clearly more to be done, and we all have to be in this together. So thank you so much for this opportunity, for sharing these thoughts. I really appreciate it, and hopefully it's useful. Thank you so much, and back to you.
سأبدأ بطرح السؤالين.
By asking two more questions, and then we give the opportunity for more questions to be asked. Mr. Muhammad, so in 2021, do we see the impact of the implementation of the Nexus in action? In reality, we do not claim that we fully adopted this approach. However, there are several factors impacting this. For instance, I have given the example of Darfur and Syria, etc. However, I think we need several factors. The institution needs to be prepared for this Nexus approach, and also the country need to be prepared. In Darfur, there were several challenges, and 12 years of aid in Syria actually were very challenging before we got to this stage. But also there is the culture of the donor, and the fact that they adopt this approach. We should not forget that most of the funds by Qatar Charity are from people who donate and parties who donate. Are they ready to adopt this methodology? Because we are talking about large-scale projects that have impact on the field. So, for instance, a donor would say, I need my specific project to be implemented regardless of other projects. So Qatar Charity is deploying efforts at this level in order to reinforce and strengthen this approach, the Nexus approach, and the linking between the different projects. We have successes, but we also have challenges. Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Dr. Sidri, my question to you, sir, is regarding the Nexus program, the level of the UNDP. So how can you highlight it? Can you give us an example where it has been implemented, this Nexus methodology that you have worked on?
No, thank you very much. I really appreciate the question. I will just sort of, maybe go back to what I mentioned briefly in my opening remarks. Um, excuse me. In Afghanistan, I think what we are trying to do as UNDP, not alone, but in concert with all the 17 UN agencies, funds, and programs, it's a joint platform. It's something perhaps which is worth looking at and of value and learning from for all of us. I think this is a continuous process. We have to be very humble about it, and we have to continuously learn from this. So what we are trying to do, I think, is complementing the humanitarian response by breaking the cycle of rapid economic deterioration, deepening poverty. We almost have, it's unbelievable, 97% of Afghanistan population, the recent analysis of UNDP has pointed out, is actually in poverty. And this is a very sharp and quick slump. And there are comparisons to sort of the worst humanitarian downward spirals, and Afghanistan really is showing that it is the rapidness is mind-boggling. And so we're trying to break the cycle and spiraling humanitarian crisis, of course. And it will require some serious effort and commitment and long-term investment with this triple nexus approach. So for example, if you see the outcomes which are being targeted and supported by important donors, including Qatar Fund for Development, the State of Qatar, which is a very important a donor partner to this particular initiative, is that we are looking at essential services that address basic human needs for the people in Afghanistan, so that these basic services, essential services, can be sustained. At the same time, and this is important because you're not trying to do this in sequence, you're trying to do this together, that you are trying to preserve the social investments and the community level systems which are essential to meeting these basic human needs, protect the gains to the SDGs, and also pave the way for future engagement and scenarios. If you look at output 3, we are looking at of this joint program, which we are all trying to implement. We are focusing on improving the infrastructure which the communities require. So for example, providing irrigation systems to the farmers so they're able to grow the crops. And some of these there are quick wins there, and these are already showing some very good, promising early results which you need to build off on. The farm-based livelihoods can be protected, and the people are able to then hopefully be more resilient and more prepared to deal with the climate shocks and natural disasters. At the same time, you have an output which is focused on social cohesion, on human rights, on access to justice at the local level. So you see, in a way, this is epitomizing nexus in action, the triple nexus in action. And of course, we are very humble about it. I think we need to learn collectively. I think UN agencies, the donor partners, and of course, what Her Excellency mentioned, listening to the community, because that's really important. As a feedback loop, is it really benefiting? So we have to be very alive to that. So that's what we are trying to do, and we are in this together. Thank you, and back to you.
شكرا دكتور شدي.
So we will allow you to ask your questions now, Dr. Abdel Fattah. Thank you very much for this important effort that is deployed by Qatar Charity when it comes to the humanitarian aspect internationally. When it comes to the nexus, the triple nexus, this approach, the key foundation, in my opinion, for such an approach is the result of the dialogue that used to take place during the Humanitarian Summit or before that, and not having the humanitarian development divide. This divide that was clear and obvious. Humanitarian work is basically a number of organizations coming
and then leaving without responding to the needs of the recovery period. So this topic, in order for us to work on efficiently, it needs to start with localization. It should adopt a bottom-up approach. And based on the latest experiences in Somalia, for instance, in 2018-2022 strategies, the situation of people returning, of the displaced, and also the hosting societies or communities. It is one strategy. It includes localization and relies on the SDGs because they tackle the humanitarian aspect on the one hand and the development aspect on the other, and also outcome or objective 16, peace. So in the Arab and Islamic world, if we have a vision based on these SDGs, especially that they were adopted, there will be some challenges relating to the work for peace building for some organizations and the reservations that they might have, but through the work with the UN, this can be dealt with time. Thank you. Another question? Mr. Ibrahim here. Thank you so much. So this nexus has been mentioned several times, however, in order to implement it efficiently, I think just like Dr. Abdel Fattah mentioned, we need to work at the level of the communities. So we used to talk about community involvement and community participation and then community management. But in order to have this nexus implemented, we need to have the post-management level. For instance, the community decision, having the community decide. So I do not know what their opinion is. So community decision, so to speak, having a decision at the level of the community before talking about the decision of institutions and donors. Thank you, Doctor. This is more comfortable here. Sitting here is more comfortable. So I think the key point that you have mentioned in your introduction is that this nexus was regarding OECD countries, and these countries have a different structure when it comes to aid and assistance and relief as opposed to the one we have here in Qatar. Here we have Qatar Development Fund that includes humanitarian and development assistance in one institution. So you have a budget in one institution. And several traditional donors, you have separate entities, and they do not relay or talk with the organization that are concerned. Afghanistan, for instance, so many countries cannot work there for political reasons in Afghanistan, so they used part of their budget in this portfolio for relief. So we're talking about Humanitarian Plus, and I think we are talking about a structural operation and budget issue. The approach and the take on things is different here, and the flexibility is different here. So I think that the research needs to be founded on this background. But humanitarian work and the link in the field between humanitarian work, also relief, emergency relief, and also longer situations and catastrophes, like in Syria, some parts of it could be political. We talked about the organization and development assistance. So they have annually for refugees in several countries, particularly Syria. So
hosting communities from a political point of view, sometimes they have issues. The actual work can be easy, however, there's the political aspect, and Mr. Muhammad mentioned the donors' side and their approach. This also applies to international donors and their political backgrounds. So, unfortunately, we only have it for 1 hour and a half, although we need more time, but maybe in the future, God willing, we will have round table with the Qatar Development Fund. So I will give you, Dr. Sidri, just 1 minute, please, to answer, to respond, please. 1 minute.
Which is worthy of a longer discussion and reflection. These were comments which I fully agree. They're very valuable comments. I would like to pick up first of all on His Excellency's point about the structure of how many of these donor partners are set up. So if you look at the recent interim review which of OECD DAC report. It points to the fact that progress is being made, but there's a lot of room for improvement. And I think Qatar really has led the way from the forefront, as the DG has highlighted, and we have plenty to learn from. So that's something which I think I wanted to flag, that the tools of planning and financing, I think there's a lot of scope still for us to harmonize across the different sort of groupings of donors. And Afghanistan is very right. I think we basically, QFFD, we were very privileged to see this in action, and I think Afghanistan is a beneficiary of Qatar's sort of commitment, vision, and generosity in supporting this integrated approach. And so basically, I think the other points. Fully agree. I mean, we need to have a bottoms-up approach. We need to focus on a local, the local realities. We need to focus on community empowerment. If I may also add, I think there is a very important role that women have to play. And we also must not forget that now climate change is a reality which is operating everywhere. Pakistan being one of the very latest grim reminders. And again, Qatar has led from the front in terms of offering support to Pakistan as well. So local empowerment, listening to local wisdom, and so on is very, very critical. If you'll allow me, just another important initiative which UNDP has, again with the generous contribution of Qatar Fund for Development, is the Accelerator Lab, which basically, in short, almost in a line, is talking about the fact that people who are closest to the ground have the knowledge of how to solve the problems on the ground. How can we benefit from that local knowledge, that wisdom, and then we plug it into our interventions and thinking. Thank you so much once again. Over to you.
Thank you, Doctor. نختم مع أستاذ محمد. Your concluding remarks.
I agree. So this humanitarian summit actually came with new concepts like the Islamic funding, the Nexus, and actually having everybody on board. And these new concepts, did they also come with a change at the level of structures, at the level of plans, at the level of programs? Just like my brother Khalifa Al-Kuwari said, I do not think that this indeed happened, because the funds dedicated for education and disasters and catastrophe, this is marginal. So for instance, when it comes to the Syrian crisis, how much is dedicated for education at the level of the UN agencies? 12 years kids have been without education. So there is a large political aspect, and also the situation on the ground, because development is understood in a way that says those people are in this situation now, but they have the future to, or in the future they
have this dignified life. So we cannot make the decisions on behalf of them. They are the stakeholders. They have the needs. Just like our colleague said, they know better what the problems are and the solutions and the challenges are. So they do not need to be part of the problem, but a key part of the solution. So I hope that in the coming years, especially with the rise of new challenges such as climate change and the natural disasters, we hope to see a large change at the level of the plans. Thank you so much, Mr. Mohammed. I would like to conclude by reiterating and emphasizing the importance of this topic. I would like to apologize because we ran out of time. I'm sorry we can no longer accept your questions just because we ran out of time. And I promise you in the future, God willing, we will have discussions regarding this very important topic. And we do not have to follow only what is offered by international agencies and organizations without localizing. Just like my colleague, Mr. Mohammed, said, we do not have a specific definition, for instance, in Arabic. So is this approach suitable for Gulf countries? Just like Mr. Khalifa said, it was offered in order to find a solution that regarding the problem of the separation between humanitarian and political, and then the link between relief, assistance, and other aspects. So it caters for Western donors. If we want to adopt this concept, I think we need to adapt them and adjust them and study them well in order to implement them efficiently. Thank you for being with us here, and I hope to see you in the future once again. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.